Hi, this is Dr. Charley Ferrer, and today I have my wonderful guest, Miranda Baker, who's an amazing author and speaker, and she's going to talk to us a little bit. Today we're also going to talk about working with your slave and reinforcing protocols and rituals, especially for those that aren't following through. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But right now I want to introduce Miranda Baker and have her say hello and tell us a little bit about what she does and what she writes. So welcome,
Hi.
Miranda.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Charley. Well, you wanted to hear about me. I'm an erotic romance author. I write very sexy stories. Some of them feature BDSM, which plays into your area of expertise. And I have a few stories coming out at the end of this month and next that I'm really excited about. One is a free read called Top Student, which I like to call my 40-page kinky sex scene. And the other is I know, it was so much fun to write. It segues through, female to female to female, female, male, and then back to the female, female. It just was super fun. And
you're just having fun jumping everywhere on that one, right?
Just all the way through, 40 pages, boom!
Reasons why you should go to school. Then you get to be the naughty student or the naughty teacher, or both.
Exactly. Well, that's what it's all about, the whole role play fun.
Awesome. Awesome. What else are you working on? I know that you had the one that there was a cover that I really loved. It was Power Trip. Is that the right way?
Oh, I love that cover. I love that
love
cover.
him. He looks so cute.
He's
with
super
a little
hot.
whip wrapping around him and stuff. I'm just like, yes, that's exactly what I want to see happen when I throw a whip.
Wouldn't that be great if lightning struck? It's a super powered BDSM story. So all of the characters have not a superpower, but they are talented. And this guy's talent has to do with electricity. So he can't touch anyone without shocking them. So what he has to do is, hide his power and keep his hands covered and, keep something in between anyone he touches. So in order for him to have sex, he needs to hood and really dominate his partners so that they can't hear or see or smell the lightning in the room.
Oh my God, that is like so hot. I have to tell you, for BDSM Writers Con, we're actually going to have Jay and Mary Ann who play with the violet wand, and they're going to do this awesome demonstration on how to play with electricity. And so I'm definitely going to have to recommend that book for them because of the fact that they have this one piece where when they're teaching you how to play with the electricity, you can ground it onto yourself. And so I always say it's my Darth Vader moment because you ground the electricity on yourself, and then when you touch the person, you have sparks of electricity coming off your fingertips.
I can't wait to see that.
It's like, oh my God, and when you see the Darth Vader pictures from Star Wars where he's like pushing his fingers out and you see the lightning coming from his fingers, that's what you see when you ground yourself with electricity. And then you touch your partner.
Well, I had to do a bunch of research to write the book in physics, which was not really my area of expertise. And to figure out whether to use the word volt or amp or joule, I wanted to get all that stuff right. And it was all complicated. And I've never seen a violet wand used, but I'm really looking forward to that at the conference.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's amazing. And when you see it coming out of your fingers, that's even better. I have to say that's just me. Because when they were teaching me how to do it, I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. I'm just running the wand over somebody's body. And he's looking at me going, and Jay goes, you're bored with that, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, it's really boring. I mean, really, it's not doing anything for me. He goes, just wait a minute. And he he set it up so that it was grounded on me. He goes, try it now with just your fingers. And I did it, and I just started cracking up, and I'm like, oh my God, Jay, this is so cool.
That sounds like much more of a much more of a connection there.
Oh, yeah. And then it was just like, because the sparks, literally, you would see the blue sparks coming off your fingertips, and as you're touching your partner, they're jumping. And that was, that was just like so cool, because I'm a reaction junkie, so I love to see them move and moan and their bodies just, flow. So, yeah, so I'm...
I want to learn the part about...
reading that way.
Yeah, I want to learn the part about how you don't fry your heart, though.
Oh, it's easy, because you're not grounding up on top. You're grounding like at your waist. And I have to say, I have no clue about electricity.
Uh-huh.
I just know what Jay tells me. So and the other piece is too that there's a little thing that you step on that then sends the current, through the connection and through your fingers. And so, but anyway, if you want to learn about electricity, then come to BDSM Writers Con and take the workshop with Jay. It's so amazing, and he's so wonderful. Him and Mary Ann are so wonderful. They've done this for us for the past 2 years. They've gone to every event that we've done, and they volunteer their time. And Jay has this little dance card. He calls it his dance card. And so it's amazing, because his dance card is always full. And you look at this man and you're like, okay, well, I wouldn't even, I mean, he's not the gorgeous man that you want to run to. But once he gets behind that wand, it's like everybody falls under his spell. And they just love him. And they're pushing each other off the table so that they can play the Valiant Wand with him, because he's so wonderful and so amazing. And then you have Mary Ann, who's his partner, and she's just the sweetest thing. When you look at her, she's just the sweetest thing, and she's got this little thing that she does with, like, her finger, like, who was it? The mini-me guy, where he puts his finger up to his mouth. And she does the same thing, and she looks so sweet and innocent, and she is the most intense, sadistic person you will ever meet. But she looks so sweet and innocent, which is amazing, which is awesome. And
you got to watch out for those sweet ones.
Yes, you have to watch out for the quiet ones, and you have to watch out for the cute ones, because they tend to be the most sadistic. So I always tell people, don't ever let the package fool you, because the really mean-looking, pumped-up guys are the ones that are, that have no spark to them. And it's the geeky ones that are the best. That's why whenever I date someone, they're always a geeky guy, because they're adventurous, and they're fun, and they're playful, and they're willing to try anything, which you have to try anything when you're around me, because I come up with the weirdest stuff. So.
I would think someone would have to be very adventurous and strong in spirit to date you with all of your sexual experience.
Yeah, really? Man, and when I tell people I'm just shy and quiet, nobody believes me. But I am.
Well, I'll have to meet you in person to see.
I am really. I have to say I'm shy and quiet, but I'm not. When I'm teaching and stuff like that, I'm not, because I'm trying to get all the information out there, so nobody ever makes the connection. Unless you're talking to my partner, and then he goes, yeah, she's kind of quiet. And people just look at you going, really?
Actually, I understand that completely. I had someone call me out on Twitter once because I wrote a blog for shy writers. And I said that I'm actually shy, given a choice of a room full of people and an armchair and a book in a corner, I'm going to go head for the armchair and grab my book. But if I'm forced into the middle of a crowd, or, I'm a teacher, so if I have to give a lecture, I'm very dynamic, but it's more of a role that I play, because that's what I've accepted.
Yeah, and it's in different situations. And what I find that's so funny is that no matter where I go, even when nobody knows me and I don't talk about sex, I mean, I don't bring up the topic. Somebody will always bring up the topic and then ask me my opinion, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure, and I'm trying to like stay incognito. I'm like, really? Is that what you think? You know, and I try to like pass it off, but they'll always start a conversation. And I had it once where one of my friends got upset with me when we went to a party, and she goes, can't you go 5 minutes without talking about sex? Because everybody around me was talking about sex, and I was the quiet one. And then
it wasn't your fault.
Looking at her going, but I haven't said a word. You know, like, you didn't have to be a sexologist. The minute that she said that, everybody in the group turned around, stared at me, and they're like, you're a sexologist? Well, talk about this. It took me 2 hours.
Who doesn't want to talk about sex?
Yeah, exactly. It's always fun. It's fun stuff. It's fun stuff. It's even more fun to do.
Well, yes.
More fun to do. So, yeah. So I'm definitely going to get that book of yours, what's it
Power
called?
Trip.
Power Trip.
Called Power Trip. Originally, I was calling it The Shocking Adventures of Super Dom. That's what I
like Power Trip.
I know. My editor said that would appeal to the comic book lovers, but not necessarily the erotic romance readers.
Right.
And I had to agree. Yeah. But that is the most lickable cover anyone has ever made for me.
Oh, yeah. And that's the piece that I love. That's like I'm going to the Wild Wicked weekend in Texas in the, I think it's the 21st through the 24th.
Is that Lorelei James? Who runs that one? I can't remember.
That one is Desiree Holt.
Oh, right.
Samantha Cato and a few others. And so I keep telling Desiree, you're going to have a lickable cowboy for me, right? He'll be ready for me. Just keep his boots on and the hat, and everything else comes off.
Except the rope, right? And you'll take care of that?
Yeah, I'll take care of the rope.
I love
hold on to the rope. Yeah. So she keeps telling me she's looking for one. And I'm like, and make sure he's got no hair on his body. You know, because that's the other piece. I think it's, well, because I enjoy fire play, and so you know, you don't want hair when you're playing with fire.
Isn't there something you could do with fire that would just take care of that hair, toot sweet?
It will, but the bad thing is that when you're playing with fire and you do the hair, you're burning the hair out. One, it smells.
Oh yeah, it does.
You know, so even if somebody has like hair on their back and stuff, it smells. Plus the other thing too is that it crackles, so it'll feel crinkly underneath your fingers, and it's just not a good feel, at least not for me. So, but the good part is that if you want to punish them, you delay turning off the fire just a couple of seconds, because the follicles of the hair will hold the fire. And so it actually hurts more. So, yeah.
Although some would not consider that a punishment, some actually would enjoy that.
No, yes, you're right. Some might, but usually when they feel that fire, they're like, ow, 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 turn it off. So I mean, I'm divulging too much about myself here, but yeah, but playing with fire is so much fun, and doing it, you know, where they're shaved or where they're waxed is, you know, the person is so much better, especially with a man. And it's one of those things where, you know, most men will complain about, well, I'm a guy, I'm supposed to be hairy. But, you know, if you look at all the hot-looking men, they have no hair.
Right.
You know,
that's very much
from the neck down, they have no hair.
That's
because it allows you to see the definition. Yeah. And for like bodybuilders and stuff, they always go in for a complete wax before their competition, because of the fact that if you don't have the hair, it defines the muscles more.
Well, my husband was a high school power lifter, which is actually what originally attracted me to him. He walked by me at the gym, and I thought, holy cats. I'm going to sleep with him. But anyway, he shaves his chest.
Guy, huh?
Yeah, from the waist up, big muscle guy.
Awesome.
He shaves his chest, and I always thought that was the weirdest thing because that was my first experience with any man shaving anything. But he always has. You know, he stopped for a couple of years, and then he thought, you know what, nah, and there went the hair again.
Yeah, and it's one of those things though, when they shave, they have to continue to do it, otherwise you get those prickly feelings.
Yeah.
On the chest.
Yep. I waxed his chest once.
I had a partner that used to shave his chest, and so our thing was, you know, you got to wax because then those prickly feelings, especially when you're naked with each other, you can feel those, you know, razor burns or on your chest. So you have the 5 o'clock shadow on the chest. It's not a good feeling. but having them shaved everywhere is perfect. And I mean everywhere, underarms, groin, legs, everything.
All right, so we need to find you a boot-wearing, hat-wearing, totally waxed cowboy.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Can I have that for my birthday? It's coming.
When's your birthday? When's your birthday?
Tomorrow.
Are you?
My birthday's every day.
You're not an Aries too, are you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, me too.
You birthday?
I am.
What day?
April the 8th.
Oh, I'm 2 days older than you.
Well, congratulations. So you're the 6th? I know so many people with that birthday. It's a very good birthday for me. I have lots of friends born on the 6th.
Yeah, we're perfect. Aries people are just perfect. And if you're born on the 6th, even better.
And of course, you can't tell us differently because we're stubborn, so.
Yeah. Although I have to say that Taurus people are even more stubborn. My son was born on the 28th, and so he falls right into the cusp of Aries and Taurus. And he's just, oh my God. I'm like, I don't go up against him because it's just a horrible thing. He's so stubborn. So.
I don't think I know any Taurus. Lots of Aries. I married a Capricorn, and that's been fine.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a good combination because they're nice. Yeah. They're moldable. They just shut up and let us tell them what to do.
Well,
I mean, they do their own thing, but they don't. They work better. You know, they flow.
I would say my husband is very willing to put up with my eccentricities.
Yeah.
I will say that, but he's not a doormat, not at all.
No, and I don't mean that in any way. I just mean more of, you know, there's a way of flowing over someone and standing right in their path and slamming up against that. You know, kind of like the river. You know, you just flow. And Capricorns tend to be more flowy. You know, they just go with the flow and they'll set their roots when they're ready. But otherwise, they just, you know, if it's not important, they let it go. That's good.
That's an excellent description. I like that.
Oh,
they set their roots when they're ready, but otherwise they flow. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So it always worked out. Yeah, I used to date a guy that was a Leo. And I can never date a guy that's a Leo because for some reason they're a perfect match for me because they're very challenging and fun and playful. However, they tend to lecture a lot. And so when I was dating this one individual, every time, and here's two dominants getting together, and this is the fun part about two dominants getting together, is that we both have our own little power struggle with each other. And so whenever he didn't like something I did, he would sit me down to lecture. And I figure, okay, you know, if I feel like I've done something wrong, I will shut up and take it because I'm letting you have you know, correct me. So I only let you correct me so long. And so his thing was he would do the lecture, and it wasn't just a little lecture, it would be a big lecture. And so he would start pacing, and I always thought it was so cute to watch him pace back and forth. while he's talking to me about something that he did not appreciate me doing. And so if I interrupt it, and here's the part that I thought was so funny, when I interrupt it, he would go, now, Charlie, you said it was my turn to talk. Let me talk. And I'm like, okay, but I just need you to, like, move forward. He goes, I am moving forward. Let me just explain to you what I mean. And then it was like picking up the needle and starting the record from the beginning, because he would go, and as I was saying, and he would start from the beginning.
I don't think I could survive that.
Yeah, and I'm going, you just talked about that part. He goes, you said you would let me finish. And I'm going, okay, shut up, Charlie, shut up, you know. So I'm sitting there listening and rolling my eyes and looking everywhere, and he would start pacing again. And so by the third time he started at the beginning, it wasn't funny anymore. And then I would have to sit here and argue with myself, going, well, if you would just shut up for a minute, Charlie, you wouldn't have him start over again. And he did. It was that pick up the needle, put it at the beginning of the record, and start all over again. And so for me, it was like, you just have to do shorthand for me.
It's funny that you're talking about an Aries-Leo pairing, though, because that is what sparked the first story that I ever sold to Sam Hain, which is called Bottoms Up. It was originally called Zodiac, and it was an Aries-Leo pairing, although I didn't know about the lecturing. I wish I had known about the lecturing.
That's this one, right? This book cover that I have here for you?
Oh, yeah, right there. The story pretty much starts out with her saying, I'm an Aries, we don't submit. And then he says, I'm a Leo, want to bet?
See,
and then they have to work out their little power dynamic.
Oh, that's really cute. See, so psychic. But yes, it is one of those things where you have a Leo and an Aries together. You know, they will clash unless one's submissive and one's willing to back down.
Somebody has to bend.
Yeah, for us it was, you know, I couldn't get over the lectures. It drove me nuts, because I figure you can tell me if I've done something wrong, and I'm more than happy to correct myself, because I believe in input, and I believe every brave and submissive can talk and say, you know, this is what's true for me. But Jesus, don't sit me down and try to, you know, walk back and forth for 10, 15, 20 minutes.
And once is enough. It drives me nuts when I hear the same thing 3 times. Okay, you've said that. I got it. I heard you the first time.
Can we skip to lesson 5?
I'm a fast learner.
Exactly. And I mean, there's not a submissive bone in my body. So for me to sit there, and be quiet while you're lecturing me, you know, I'm being very nice to you, you know. So that was like my confession. It's like, okay, you know, he needs his little dommy time. You know, that's the way I thought of it. You know, I have to give him his little dommy time, because he can't be dominant with me, you know. And since I'm very possessive, so I don't, you know, when I'm in a relationship with somebody, it's me, period. You know, you don't get to play around with anybody else. You don't get to top anybody else if you're dominant with me, you know, and interacting with me, because we're together. So it's like, okay, here's your 5 minutes of dom, but I'm counting. I have the watch on, you know. My little hourglass is going up and down. So get it over with.
Wouldn't some call it that topping from the bottom?
Well, no, because that's totally different. Topping from the bottom, you would be more of, if your submissive actually was telling you, oh, well, you know, don't do that, or only hit me, you know, only flog me for 5 minutes and I'll tell you when to stop, or, you know, I don't like it when you tell me to do this. So that's more of topping from the bottom, trying to control what's going on with the scene. With me, it was just, you can't get me to sit down for that long. You know, I mean, it just doesn't work. You know, if you're sitting there talking to me, then fine, we can sit and talk and interact. But if you're doing the lecture thing, I'm not a child. And so that's where we, you know, that's where our relationship ended with me and him. He was so used to interacting with submissives that he couldn't interact with a dominant. And so, you know, we constantly clash. But the sex was great. But everything else in that part, no, you know, so that's why the relationship lasted as long as it did, because everything else was great.
Well, because good sex is important.
Good sex is very important, you know, and astronomical sex, you hold on to that for quite a while.
You got to have your priorities.
You do. You have to have your priorities. And, you know, I'm making my list. So, you know, that was another thing. When he would start his lecturing, he would always stop somewhere along the line because I'd already tuned him out. And I try to be respectful. I mean, I really am. I try to be respectful with everyone. So I would listen in as long as I could, you know. But when we got to the, you know, to the second rewind, you already lost me. At the third, you know, I'm making my list. I'm planning whatever I have to plan. I'm doing a lecture in my own head so that I can sit you down to remind you, hey, you don't need to lecture me that long. Just send me an email. So yeah, so it's amazing. I mean, when you're in a relationship with someone, you have to be able to do the give and take, but you also have to be able to notice when the relationship really isn't working for you so that you can then step out of it. So you can find someone even better.
Well, I haven't had to think about that for 15 years.
Yeah. And see, I admire that. I love when people tell me they've been together, you know, 7, 10, 30 years. I just love that. And when I see couples that have been, you know, older couples that have been together for 30, 40 years, I sit down with them. I just like, you know, do you mind if I sit at your table and just talk to you? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And it's that piece of, I want to know what you've done to keep your relationship going for so long. And it's the fact that there's so much compromise and there's so much love and affection and respect that goes into these, that most of the relationships, that most of the relationships now don't take into consideration. And they don't show it. I mean, passion is great and lust is great, and people tend to confuse those with the everlasting love, you know. And so they get into these relationships, and then they do this whole fancy thing. And I think most people like the wedding and the attention and the gift because that's all they want. And then 2 years later, they're breaking up and getting divorced. But the ones that stay in it forever, those are just, for me, those are amazing. Those are the ones that I want to sit by and talk to and see what they've done and learn from them, and then pass the knowledge on to everybody else. So.
I think it has a lot to do with wanting to spend time with someone. You know, when I met Ben, we spent 24 hours a day together for 6 months or so, and then I had to go on my extern from school, and then we came back and started that out all over again. You find the person that you can, you know, be with and not talk and just spend all those hours together, and I think that's the good thing.
Yeah.
At least it was
when
for
you're
us.
happy being quiet. And you have to be happy being quiet, because if you're not, then, you know, there's something wrong.
I mean, it's not sex all the time.
It's not?
It's not over here, although that is something that we have done to sort of keep the spark going, because we've got 3 kids, and round about the middle of kid 2, I was still breastfeeding. I was dry as a bone. Sex was painful. I joke that if I'd had an ice pick under the bed, he would have been done for. But the man is a chef. We met in culinary school. He cleans. He's amazing with the children. He'll do anything for me. And he really likes sex. So there was sort of a trade-off that needed to happen. I mean, it wasn't like a quid pro quo, but it's our language. You know, he's doing all these things, and I wanted to have great sex. So we discovered, you know, the kinky side of sex, and I started writing erotic romance, and we began experimenting with BDSM. And that has really really kicked things up. It's put a good focus on our intimate life that might have otherwise fallen by the wayside with the exhaustion of, well, I have 4 jobs and 3 kids, and he's got a full-time job, and we're doing this whole family life thing together, and I was tired.
Yeah.
But kink makes things more fun.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? And you hit the mother load because you have the top 3. You have he cooks, he loves sex, and he likes kink.
I know. And Dr. Charley, he's really hot. He's really good looking too.
Oh, really? Is he going to be like wax so I can play with him when you bring him over in August?
You know,
he's fire.
Okay, it's a deal. It's a deal. I'll tell him no shaving for her. You're going to have to wax for her.
Yeah, you have to wax. It's so much better.
His last experience with waxing was me, and I read it was sugaring, and I read the kit, and it said don't go over the same area twice, but I didn't follow the directions, and it didn't go well about 24 hours later for the poor man.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I got those little bumps everywhere.
Yeah, I'll have him professionally done.
Yeah. Which, by the way, it's so much fun to take them to a waxer, you know, and have the waxer, and especially if it's a male salon. I love going to the male salons here in New York. They have some wonderful male salons, and you know, typically they have like the private gay male salons. Those are the best to go to. And then ask them to go, and you can watch while they're doing it. It is so much fun to watch because the guy gets nervous, and not the guy doing it, but the, you know, your submissive or your slave gets very nervous when another man starts handling him and such. And so it's just wonderful. It's wonderful.
Well, my husband is not submissive, nor my slave. I would call him kinky. He'll do anything, but I wouldn't put him in the submissive category.
Well, you know, just the male category.
But
so,
I think
to take the male to get waxed by another male.
I'm trying to picture that.
Yeah, and you stand there watching, you know, and you instruct and you say the areas that you would like waxed and how you would like waxed, you know, how you would like it to look. And oh, so much fun. It's fun, and it's erotic, and it's a nice bonding experience, I think. So
cool.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do it. I would say if you're doing any kind of Brazilian waxing on a man, go take him to the people who know how to do it.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So you don't want any problems there, especially if you're doing any kind of if you're doing the scrotum area and such and waxing around there. It's always a good idea to have it done professionally so that it doesn't tear, because the scrotum is so thin that if you don't have enough hair, it'll tear.
Oh, I would never try to do that. No way, man. I was working on his chest, which is a very tough area.
Yeah, keep the toughness where it needs to be. But it's cute too because you hear them scream.
Oh, oh!
I love that. That's like what was that movie? The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh yeah.
When they had that scene where he's getting waxed.
Oh,
and he
yeah,
actually did it for real. And he did it for the first time for real on that show. I thought it was the funniest thing. I can't watch that part and like breathe because I laughed for like 3-4 minutes through it because it's just so hysterical, you know. And so of course you do the little mind fuck with your partner. And so you have him watch that right before you go wax. So he's already thinking it's going to be so painful, you know, and like you combine things, you know. So,
what a good idea.
So it's one of those things where, you know, we talked about mindfucks in one of the prior shows. And people say, well, you know, what's a mind fuck? Does it have to be intense? Does it have to be all these, you know, all these specific things and scary and all that? And it's like, no, you could do a mind fuck on anything, just like that. You know, on the waxing thing, telling you have to be waxed. And by the way, let's play this movie I just, you know, the night before. And just, you know, at random, ooh, why don't we watch this movie? It's so much fun. And here's this part about being waxed. So you're already preparing him for, oh my gosh, it's going to be scary. And so you see them start to fidget. You see them start to, you know, get nervous and stuff and try to make delays. Well, you know, maybe we shouldn't go today, or there's, you know, I have to clean the garage like you wanted me to or something. So so it's cute little mind fucks. You can play with people all over the place, you know, and just incorporate them in everything you do. And for me, it's an automatic thing. I don't even notice that I'm doing it, and someone will say, oh, well, you know, you're really torturing, you know, so-and-so. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That wasn't my intent. But when I stop and think about it, it's like, wow, that could be a really cute mind fuck. And it worked out perfect. So you never know.
You like to stir up trouble, huh?
I do. I do. I'm not an instigator, though, not in a bad way. But I love to have fun, and I love to be playful. And so it's making an adventure out of everything. And that's the way I think life should be lived. It's having fun, doing whatever you're doing, even if it's something as mundane as, you know, as walking down the street. Have fun walking down the street. You know, have fun cleaning and see what you can do when you're doing it, and with your partner. It becomes so much fun. I mean, if you have your partner cleaning in the nude while you're watching, you know, that is so much fun. That's a wonderful way to get your house done and clean. It just goes to a totally different level. It might take you a bit longer to clean because you're going to constantly be interrupting with little touches and, you know, other kind of interruptions. But, you know, the house got cleaned. So, and they're more willing to clean the house a second time. Because, see, so there's rewards to this stuff, you know? So it works out really well.
Sounds like a good system to me.
Yeah, you can find all sorts of things to make it better. But yeah, so that's wonderful. And I see here in the picture for bottoms up, it's a cougar, isn't it? Is it a cougar or something that he has on his arm, total tattooed?
You know, I think that those look like Chinese dragons to me. I think I've looked at them before.
Are they?
But in the story, they're actually Celtic tattoos, but apparently the stock images that they find for covers, they can't always find the perfect tattoo. But this really captured the essence of the story. So that's what they went with. And
Excellent. Yeah, one of the most amazing photographers that I've seen, and I actually use quite a bit of his work on my website, and it's Captured Erotica. If you go to Captured Erotica, he does some of the most amazing photographs, especially kink-based, because that's basically what he does, all erotic art. And it's just so amazing. And the wonderful thing about him is that he will actually, if you tell him what you want, he'll create it for you. Oh. You know, he'll put his models and he'll tell the models to do whatever, and then he'll shoot the pictures for you. Well, at least he does for me, so I'm special.
You are special. That sounds fabulous. Captured Erotica.
Captured Erotica. CapturedErotica.com. And he just has, he's got the most beautiful eye on camera that I have ever seen, that he just captures these amazing photos. And he has one that I'm actually going to be putting up on the website for BDSMwriters.com and also for BDSM for writers, where he has this one where he did it out in the desert, and the woman is kneeling in the desert nude and covered, her face is covered, and it's just so amazingly beautiful. that I'm just waiting for the perfect article to put it in. So, but he does the most amazing stuff. And actually our picture, our mail cover, both of our pictures actually, if you go and look at the flyers for
I love them.
the conference, those are his work.
Those are really amazing. They're very eye-catching in completely different ways, but I put them both up on my website, I think.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, those are both his pictures. One is called Captured Nick, and the other one is the girl. And for me, it's one of those things where, you know, I asked him for a picture for the conference, and I wasn't sure what in my head it should look like. And he goes, well, what about these? And he sent me that one, and I just fell right in love with it.
Oh, I turned his website on. Apparently, he's got some very fancy music. I wasn't expecting that. All right, we'll listen to that another time.
And he's got music to take you through the pictures, which is wonderful.
Well, that will do. I'll have to do that another time.
Yeah, but he has the most amazing pictures, and he even does it to where one of the things that he does is that he also does photography for you. So if you wanted to do some erotic photography and such, he would do that. But the beauty of it is not, you know, I mean, he's not doing the nudie photos. He's putting you in positions and in situations, in places where the background is part of your picture. And so it becomes so amazing.
That's funny because, you know, those selfies that you shoot in the bedroom with all the stuff in the background just don't look right.
They don't. You have like the clothes on the corner and the books all screwed up. Yeah.
We shot one the other night. I came home and saw that Ben had, you know, screwed an eye bolt into the stud in the ceiling, so we were making use of that. And I said, hey, take a picture. And he did, and you know what? All the dirty laundry in the background, the laundry basket, the Dixie cup on the bedside table, the fire alarm knocked off the wall. Not sexy.
Not sexy.
Not
exactly.
Sexy.
And most of the time people don't realize this. That's why whenever I see pictures, if you know, somebody will say, oh, check out my profile and so on and so forth. And I'll look and I'm like, really? You did a bathroom shot? I mean, that is so non-erotic and so boring. But Captured Erotica would make it so fantastic. You know, it would just be the most amazing bathroom photo shot you've ever seen. But he's that good, you know. Captured Erotica is that good. But it is funny when you see all that junk in the background and you're trying to be so cool. You know.
Yeah, it just doesn't play that way when you can see your brand of shampoo.
It just doesn't work.
Oh, Head and Shoulders.
A really nice battle.
Especially if it's like Head and Shoulders, a nice dandruff shampoo.
Exactly. And see, and I always tell people, I see more than you want me to see. And so it's one of those things where when you ask me, can you tell me what you see? Can you tell me what you think? I always ask people, how much do you want me to notice? Because I see too much. And so I'll be seeing the connection with, you know, well, here's the shampoo and here's the hair and here's the clothes and here's all this stuff. So I'll be making all these connections, and it may not be the connections that you wanted me to make. So I tend to just tell people, what do you want me to see? What do you want me to share? Because I see more than you want me to. And when I do therapy, it's you know, therapy is totally different, of course, because I'm helping you overcome. And so whenever I do one-on-one mentorship or actual therapy with someone, I always tell them, make sure that you're ready for me. And by that, I mean, I'm not the type that's going to sit there and allow you to go on and on and on and repeat the same bad pattern. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to call you on your stuff. I'm going to be the mirror you look at who actually tells you what's going on and what's wrong. And so if you're not ready for that, then you shouldn't come to therapy with me, or you shouldn't come to mentorship with me, because I'm going to make you work.
Well, a lot of people don't have the ability to name what they're feeling. They can't objectively figure out what's bothering them. They just don't know.
Right. But it's the piece of being willing to work with it. And so, for instance, if you're coming in to sit there and continue the same old pattern, then I'm not the person for you. I tend to tell people, you have one session with me where you can repeat your pattern, where you can stay in the muck that you want to be in, that you want to change. After that, we're going to start moving you forward. We're going to start changing that pattern, because basically you're coming to me so that we can change the pattern, so that we can make your life better. And so it's inappropriate of me to sit there and allow you to repeat the bad pattern, to allow you to stay in the muck without challenging you to move forward, without saying, wow, this is what I'm seeing. You know, not that I'm going to yell at you like a drill sergeant, go, you got to change right now. You know,
well, you have a job to do.
It's more of, you know, this is what you wanted. This is why you came here. You want me to help you have a better life, and this is what it's going to take. You know, let's talk about what's going on with you, and let's move forward to change it, to see the connections that you're making, and move from there. And that's the important piece. Or if somebody's coming for mentorship, because I do DS mentorship and I do mentorship in just having a better love life, it becomes a piece of you really need to work at it. So I'm going to be taking you through different steps and saying, these are the, you know, here's stuff that you need to read. Here's material that you need to discuss. Here's, you know, here's ideas that will help you start thinking. Because I believe that if you're conscious of what's going on in your life and what's going on around you, that's where you make your change. And most of us live in a very fogged up existence. We see our lives, but we're not part of it as well. And so we tend to sleepwalk through our lives. We tend to just go to work, go home, interact with a partner, interact with the kids, go to bed, go to work, go home, and we do the same pattern over and over. And this doesn't mean that you're not arguing and living your life, but the piece of it is that you tend to get in that rut where it's just, you know, the same thing, different day. And so what I do with people is I make you notice, well, what is today? What did you do? Why did you do that? You know, making you very conscious of life and making you very conscious of what's going on and how you're participating in. And as you do that, that's where your change is going to come. That's where you're going to start noticing, wow, I really didn't need to behave that way. Wow, you know, that's not working for me anymore. Or I don't need those kind of defense mechanisms, or I don't need to be in this relationship because it's not working for me, or I need to improve this relationship so it will work for me. And that's the piece of being very conscious of your life, being very conscious of what's going on with it. And that's where the change comes in. And to do that, it's really hard. It's really hard to stay conscious of your life every day, every minute. So
I think it would be exhausting in the short term.
At the beginning,
a long-term payoff.
At the beginning, it can be exhausting because you're not used to doing it. It's kind of like exercise. You know, at the beginning when you try to exercise, you either do it all gung-ho and then in 2 weeks you stop because it's exhausting, or you turn around and you just, it's like, why do I have to do this? You know, why do I have to be in this gym? And so you make it a bad task that you have to do. Instead of noticing and living consciously doesn't mean you have to like analyze and psychoanalyze everything you do. It's more of notice what's going on around you. Notice how you're interacting. Notice if you're even saying hi to people walking down the street. You know, my friends have this big joke that they will never walk with me anywhere. You know, so we already know that. If you're walking with Charley, you know, you have to have patience and you have to like to meander, because they tell me I meander wherever I go. because I don't believe in rushing wherever I'm going. It doesn't work for me. And it actually makes me nervous because I forget things if I'm trying to rush. And so I like to just, take it nice and calm, walk where I'm going, stare at everything. I'm very big. I'm very voyeuristic. I love to look. I love to stare. I like to see the architecture. I stick my tongue out in the rain. I just want to capture the drop on my tongue. I want to capture the snowflake. I want to feel the wind in my face and my hair. And I take all of that into consideration, being conscious of even my walk to the store or walk around my neighborhood and noticing and smelling and letting all my senses go. And that's how you live consciously. Because all of a sudden you notice that, wow, your neighbor over here, did something new with their lawn. And just, I actually stood at one of the, when I did a walk around my neighborhood, I actually stood in front of this woman's fence, and she's like looking at me like I'm crazy because I don't know her. I was just walking down the way. And she was waiting for me to leave, and I'm waiting for her to come out, and she finally goes, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Your garden looks really wonderful, and you have these birds all set up." Because she apparently put food out. And so all the little birds came, and it just looked so beautiful having birds all lined up along her fence. And so she takes a look and she goes, "Great thing they're not attacking." And I just sit there and I look at her and I'm like, look at the difference of our thought patterns, because here she's thinking, great that all these birds aren't attacking. And I'm thinking, isn't it beautiful and lovely to see all these birds lined up? So
completely different.
Yes. And noticing if you're looking at despair or you're looking at, pleasure and so on. And I just started laughing. I'm like, wow, that really brought it to the point. And I just started laughing at her. And I'm like, well, I guess they won't attack. It'll be a great rendition of the movie The Birds. So
she's thinking Hitchcock and you're thinking Mary Poppins.
Yes. Exactly. And so being conscious of what you're putting in your head, what you're seeing and how you interact, I think that's really that's what's going to make your life different. Being able to, not be polyamorous, but be more willing to open up and look at different aspects of life and see how they're working and how they're not working. So
Every once
that's
in a
really
while.
important.
Every once in a while, my husband and I will fall into one of our patterns, and I'll look at him, or he'll look at me and say, wait a minute. We've had this fight about 50 times over the past 10 years. This is what I'm going to say. This is what you're going to say. This is how I'm going to react. That's how it's going to make you feel, and then this is what's going to happen. Can we just skip that? Can we skip it and just, figure this out?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great when you notice that. Because it's one of those things, it's like when you argue and you halfway through the argument or even, a third of the way through the argument, you don't even know what you're arguing about because you lost the point.
Mm-hmm.
You really have. It's kind of like, with that one individual that I was talking about. I totally lost the point by the time you went to your third lecture. I lost it because now all I am is upset that you have me sitting here listening to you over and over. So whatever point you're making is gone.
Yeah.
So
at that
noticing,
point, I get irritated because you're wasting my time. I could be doing 4 other things, and I'm sitting here in a chair staring at you.
Exactly. And so I take it as my, mentally do my checklist, which is horrible. And so then, and then I sit there and I go, so when I do this to a submissive, are they like thinking of something else that's going through their head and not listening to what I'm talking about? So then you have to like develop little add-ons to make sure that you capture their attention. So, but I'm not going to talk about those now.
Well, I hope I'm going to get to hear all about them at BDSM Writers Con.
Yes, we will. I'm actually doing a class on, why we do what we do, and talking about how DS is in our lives, regardless of whether or not we practice it. There's always, and by that I mean, we do have power exchange that goes on in our lives with everyone we interact with, whether it's our boss, our children, our neighbors, our partners. There's always some type of a power exchange that's going on. And we're not always in the right mindset of the power exchange. So for instance, if you're a dominant or a submissive, you're not always a dominant or submissive in that exchange. So yes, if you're in a DS relationship, you're going to keep the power dynamic, but you might be a dominant, and to your neighbor, you're submissive at certain points. So you don't feel like arguing about your car is 3 inches closer to my, to my gardenias that I wanted it to be. You just, okay, whatever, I'll move the car. So there are power dynamics, that you go into. And part of what we're going to talk about in BDSM Writers Con is the fact that there's so many different levels of DS. There's the soft, there's the higher, there's the edgier, there's, very intense and dark. And everyone plays and interacts at a different level. And they all interact in different ways with different people. And
that is very true. I think it's amazing that people can figure out, with as different as people are, and where they fall on the the power spectrum, and what they're looking to get from a relationship. I think it's amazing that people can manage to get the BDSM dynamic figured out at all.
Yeah, that's why it's so good to know which one you are, or to address and be conscious of what it is that you want and how you want to interact with other people. Whenever I teach, I always tell individuals, especially for individuals coming in new to the scene, and they'll say, well, I'm not quite sure what I am, Charley. Where should I go? And I always instruct them to just learn everything. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be a switch. You can be an unknown, so that you allow yourself to learn. You allow yourself to explore. You allow yourself to find what's most comfortable for you. And whenever a newbie comes up and tells me, I should be this or I should be that, it's, well, that's a wonderful thing. However, let yourself explore and let yourself be open to the possibility of difference. And I always see men in particular will come into the lifestyle saying, oh, well, I'm a dominant. And I always kind of chuckle to myself, especially when the men tell me that, because they're so used to what society says they're supposed to be, that within 3 months to 6 months, they've already switched over and they've already identified who they really are, whether they're submissive or whether they're switched. And most men tend to be switches, at least from what I've seen. But to be a true dominant, they're rare. And so I tell people, just go and explore. Allow yourself to see what you like. Allow yourself to experience things, to just, to just be fun and playful. And that's the piece that's so important. Because if you don't allow yourself that at the beginning, you're going to get stuck and feel that you have to be this one thing. And that's where it becomes no fun.
Right. If you're looking to have fun, then you have to figure out what you think is fun. And a big part of, we haven't hammered out our workshop yet, but the whole from the books to the bedroom, bringing fantasy to life, a big part of that for me is experimenting and practice. You can't try something once. You can't, decide you want to explore BDSM, give it a shot, not like it, and quit. Because you could do the exact same thing a second time and have a completely different experience, even with the same person. I think it takes a little while to develop trust in your own response and to develop trust in your partner.
And once is never enough. And it is that piece of being able to tweak it. You know, I always tell people, if you try something, try it 3 times. Because your first time, you're probably in shock that you even did it. And so you're not sure if you like it. You know, I mean, you know, you really don't know if you like it unless you try it more than once, so that it allows you to get over the shock factor. And it also allows you to get over the societal factor, because we have this idea of what's acceptable and what's not. It's been drilled into us since we were babies, of how we should act, what's okay, what's not okay. Like somebody will say, you know, well, I would never do fire because I don't want to get burnt. Well, that's not really what happens in fire play. You're not getting burnt. You know, that's not the intention of what the interaction is. I've seen people who will say, oh, well, I really love fire play because it feels like a wonderful warm massage. So there's the difference of being able to be open to possibility and then trying it in different ways. Trying anything. It's just like when you have sex, you may not have enjoyed it, your first experience, because it was painful or it was awkward or, you know, it just wasn't the right person or it wasn't the right position. So being able to be open and to allow yourself to explore all these different possibilities, that's the important piece. And then that's where you're going to start seeing whether you like it or not, whether you enjoy it, what you need to tweak a little bit. And there was a movie called The Other Sister, and it was a wonderful movie where the couple was actually developmentally impaired. And there was this one part where they're talking about having sex. And she's going through the book, you know, she's going through this sexual position book, and she goes, well, I'll try number 12, but we have to switch it around a little bit. And I thought that was perfect, because it allows you to realize that it might be fun, but you have to tweak it, you know, and that's the important piece. And when you do that, you're going to have so much fun with everything. You're just going to enjoy it. And also realizing that with some of the things that you do, it's not so much the activity, but the person. And so you might like it with this person, but you hate it with that one, or it didn't feel the same.
I've definitely discovered that like with my husband, it takes a lot for me to get into a space to let him top me, because that's just not our dynamic. I like, you know, he's always, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. We're working on it, because it's all about me getting into the headspace. He's not doing anything wrong. I'm just not there. But yet I'll meet another person and immediately think that I could bottom for that person, just because I think people have different energies.
Right. And it's
intrinsically.
And it's also the fact that you put him in this box in your head, in your life, of how you interact with him. And being able to move him out of that box and say, oh, okay, well, you can be the dominant with me in this, but you've always seen him as your partner, and you've seen him in a different light. And that's always hard to pull people from that. You know what I would recommend if I can?
Certainly.
Have him wear a hood.
Ooh.
Have him wear a hood that obscures his face. So a full hood. I bet you it'll totally change everything for you.
Well, I will certainly give that a shot. What we did on Sunday was, well, we have a standing kink date on Sundays when the kids are at religious school, naturally. And he just looked at me and he said, I was, you know, mouthing off about something, and, oh, would you do this? Would you do that? I don't know. And he said, woman, would you just be quiet? And then he gagged me. And you know, a year or two ago, I don't think I would have stood for that. But then, you know, we've experimented enough that I thought, you know what? That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're doing like I did with my Leo, you know, you just shut up and listen.
Just, you know what, your input is not
the
welcome
ability
here.
To do it.
I didn't even really want to say anything, but I just couldn't not.
Yeah.
So he took that away, and I let him, and it worked out great.
Yeah.
Worked out great. We'll try the hood thing too. That kind of gave me a shiver. I got a shiver. I like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes it to a different level, and the fact that you can't see their face just makes them a different person in your head. And so you'll find yourself going, but that's my hubby, but it's Ben, and then you'll look and it's like, but it's not Ben, you know. So it'll allow you to take it to another level, and it'll allow him to take it to another level. And so he may even act totally different when he does that, because his mindset will go different.
He's gonna like this idea.
Yeah, and then you come back and go, Charley, that worked awesome.
I'll definitely report.
Yeah, I have a couple that I mentor, and I'm mentoring the husband to be the dominant and his wife to be the slave. And so it's so funny because whenever I see them, her first comment to me at times is, "Damn it, Charley, don't teach him anything else." Because he implements it. And so we were at a party, and I saw them at the party, and and he's whipping her and stuff, and all of a sudden I hear her scream, "Damn it, Charley!" And I thought it was the funniest thing. And so afterwards, of course, I go to say hello, and she's like, "I was thinking about it, I know." And I'm going, "Yeah, we all heard." because all you hear, and his name is not Charley, so all you hear is her going, "Damn it, Charley! Damn it, Charley!" So "damn it, Charley" is not a safe word.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's why I'm really excited that my husband is coming to the BDSM Writers Conference as well.
Same here.
As soon as I found out about the conference, I thought, you know what? I think that's something I'd like to go to because it sounds super fun. And then when the opportunity, came around and to present a workshop, well, that was even better.
Even better. Yeah, and I think there's like 5 authors are bringing their husbands with them, which is fantastic, because it allows you, and it's one of those things where all the husbands are actually going to the workshops as well. And it allows them to not only be able to learn and be a part of your life, but also to learn about DS and to learn the connections that you're making, and maybe even open up your life in totally different ways. And I know last year, because BDSM Writers Con has been around, this is our 3rd year. Actually, the first 2 years, it was called the 3-day intensive for BDSM for writers. And this year we've opened it up to the general public as well, and readers, and bringing them and making them an even bigger part of the conference. But the past 2 years, I know last year, two of the authors brought their partners and their husbands, and it was just so amazing to see them go from these quiet little things in the classroom to just going nutso at the club, and nutso in a wonderful way, because jumping from event to event to event, and the equipment, and having all the opportunities to talk and to play and to interact. And one of the authors, she was so cute, because you see her and she's just like this petite little thing, and she went from being totally shy to being totally dominant and just having a blast. And she got a flogger in her hand. Her arm never stopped moving. And so for the entire time, I mean, she's talking, and she didn't even realize that she's playing with a flogger on the right, while she's talking to everybody and talking to her partner, and her husband was there, and she's like, "Well, honey, I have to try this on you. I just have to try it." And then you hear this big, this is so great, and she was just in heaven. And he's going, okay, we're having fun here. And so, and they're moving on, and they're having such a blast. And then another one, and her whole thing during the first class, because we went to the club twice last year. And so the other author was going, well, I could never do that. I'm just, I can't see myself hurting anybody or doing anything like that. And so I had a friend of mine that was at the club, and she had her submissive with her, and she had him tied up. And so one of the questions was, what's the most evil instrument that you have in your toy bag? And I said, well, for me, it's a toothpick. And everybody's like, what? A toothpick? That's just like, you know, I'm waiting for this big metal paddle, you know, a big whip, a bull whip, something. And I'm like, no, it's just a toothpick. And so the piece of the toothpick is it becomes the most annoying thing when you're poking someone, when you're running it across them, when you're dragging it across their skin and scoring their skin, and just it becomes an annoying little shit that's wonderful to torture them. And the author turned around and grabbed the toothpick, and she goes, well, let me try. This shouldn't be so bad. And she started poking him, and she just turned and looked at me, and she had the biggest grin on her face, and she goes, I just love this. And she spent like an hour poking this guy everywhere. We gave her the nickname Miss Poke. And she just, I mean, the poor guy, you know, and he enjoyed all of it, so, you know, so not in a bad way, poor guy. But this poor man was there tied up, and she just poked and poked and poked and poked all over his body everywhere, and I'm talking everywhere.
Oh, my goodness.
She would just giggle and giggle. And then she goes, it's okay, isn't it? And he goes, yes, I'm having fun. Feel free. And his, you know, and his mistress was there, and she would just chuckle. She goes, let me tie him up in a different way. You can do it again. And, you know, and she would tie him up in a different position, and Miss Poke would go for it again. And they spent hours with this slave there, just having so much fun. And the next day, and I love to talk to people and talk to authors and such, and readers when after the event, so that this way we can come back and talk about everything and make sure that you're feeling comfortable with your own behavior and what you saw and so on. And they were just like, we're going again, aren't we? We're going again. We're like, yes, we could go to the club one more night. And, you know, they bought all their equipment, and they started their own toy bags. And it allowed them to notice that whatever you have in your head, whatever you told yourself you're supposed to be, when you start exploring, it becomes different, you know. So the reality and the fantasy will switch, you know, and you'll start noticing that what you thought you couldn't do is what you enjoy. And it might be that what you fantasized about, you'll find that when it comes to reality, it's really not as cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you'll end up tweaking it. Because I know some things that I thought were just, they're wonderful and they're erotic in your head, but when you actually put them into practice, it's just not cool.
Yeah, I've had that experience myself.
You don't like the way it looks, you don't like the way it feels, you just don't like it. And and so that's part of, you know, in your workshop you can address that as well, I'm sure you will, where it's, you know, turning fantasy into reality is important, and it does become different.
I really think that, and you have to do some things before you know which fantasies you even want will even work for you. Like, I never would have guessed that snapping a towel would make me laugh like a loon and would just be a super fun way of, you think immediately of, spanking someone or flogging or paddling, but you never think that snapping a towel might be more fun than that. So you have to try some things. So I never would have guessed that would be something I would enjoy doing in the bedroom. I would think that, some of the fantasies that we've tried that haven't worked out well would be like the #1 most fabulous experience. And then we do it, and I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I wanted at all. Oh, that was terrible. And now the fantasy is ruined. You ruined it.
Now it's ruined. Exactly. Exactly.
Let's pretend like it never happened. It didn't happen.
Yeah, and that's my thing. If you didn't enjoy it, it doesn't count.
Perfect.
That's the way I look at it. You don't have to beat yourself up like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh my God. It's like, you know what? You didn't like it, doesn't count. Keep going. Cross it off your list.
Moving on.
Off your list and move on. Exactly.
Moving on.
And if you really, really, you know, if you really weren't sure, or if you didn't like it, but you might want to try it, then try it and tweak it. You know, and I have in the book, in my book, BDSM, The Naked Truth, and BDSM for Writers, it has an actual checklist that allows you to have the basic events, or the basic, what am I trying to say? The basic activity, and then you can change it up. So like you were saying, you know, a spanking can be a spanking with anything. It can be a spanking with a towel. It can be a spanking with your hand, with a spoon, over the knee, over the counter. Every one of those things, every one of those activities will change the feeling of it, will change the way you internalize it, will change the emotion connected to it. And so noticing that when you switch one little aspect of it, it switches everything, and it makes it totally different. And you might enjoy it that way. If you like the towel, it's so much fun. And the other piece too is realizing that DS doesn't have to be, you know, dark and sinister and totally serious the whole time. You can have fun and enjoy doing different things and having a blast and just being playful. Like Miss Polk, I stood there watching, I cracked up. I thought it was the funniest thing, you know.
Now, which of your... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say...
You go.
No, I was just going to say it's wonderful to watch other people as well, how they're having fun, because that'll let you have fun. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, you go.
Now, my turn. Which of your books would you recommend? Because in our workshop, we don't want to, you know, say that we're the expert on BDSM, and we don't want to have to cover the basics. We'd like to move on from that and say, if you'd like a thorough grounding in negotiation or, you know, safe, sane, and consensual safety issues, read this. Which book should we recommend?
Well, I'm going to have to plug in my book. If you're talking to readers, then BDSM, The Naked Truth is a wonderful book. It'll give you the basics, and it'll give you an understanding of the life and why people come into the life and how we interact. It'll also give you more advanced information because it teaches you how to train a slave. It talks about the pieces that you need in place in order to interact with them. And then at the end of the book, there's also a lot of resources that you can use and other books to read. There's also, you know, if you're a writer, then I recommend BDSM for Writers, because in that book, it's similar to the other, but it's more for writers. It talks about writing your stories and how to interact in them and what's really going to capture your audience more. There's other books as well. I would say if you're wanting, you know, there's always SM 101 is a wonderful step in. It was actually the first book I ever read.
Me too.
Yeah.
I also
it's a
like
wonderful lead-in.
The bottoming book and the topping book. Those are fun.
There's a book called The Dominant Manual for the Nervous Beginner. I think that's the name of it. It's in my book, so it'll have the information in the back. But it's one of those books where it allows you to learn how to be the dominant. And by that, I mean, you know, you're either a dominant or a submissive or a switch in between. But there are ways to be dominant. There are ways to be able to control your partner and instruct them in the ways that you want them to be. And I think that one book is wonderful because it gives you a lot of ideas, especially when you're first starting out. And sometimes it's just in the words that you use. You know, so NLP comes into play. Neuro-linguistic programming comes into play. How do you interact? What do you say? You know, I had somebody tell me, and actually, and it's always from men. Men give me the funkiest information at times. But I had this one guy tell me that there was no way I could be a dominant because I was so nice and polite. And, and I just looked at him and I smiled, and everyone around me started laughing, you know. And so it's that piece of the idea that you have in your head that if you're a dominant, you must be like a drill sergeant yelling and screaming. And that was his version of a dominant. And so talking to him about the fact that, you know, if you're yelling and screaming at somebody, then you're really not in control. You're losing control. You're losing your, you know, you're so upset that you're losing it. You know, basically that's what's happening. And so how can you be dominant if you're losing it? And so it's more of control. It's more of how you want the person to behave around you and to listen to you. And so for me, because I work and lecture and work with so many people, I believe in respect, regardless of who you are, whether you're a slave, a submissive, an object, whatever. You get my respect until you show me that I shouldn't have it. And then I'm going to give it to you anyway because I'm respecting myself and my interaction with you. So if you're a jerk, I'm just going to turn around. I don't need to be a jerk to you. I'm just going to turn around and stop talking to you because I don't need to be around jerky people. They just don't belong in my universe. And so, you know, so I don't have to be inappropriate to you to be dominant with you. And it's the mindset. It's all about mindset. And so that book on the nervous beginner allows you to start learning how to switch your focus, how to be okay in your dominance, especially for women who are starting out new, because we've been told, well, you don't want to do that because then you're going to be a bitch. You know, I mean, the worst thing that you're supposed to be is a bitch. And so embrace the bitch in you, but let her come out in a totally wonderful light. You know, so it's not a negative way. It's more of a positive interaction and allowing yourself to be dominant, allowing yourself to control that, to express that, and do it in a constructive way with your partner. Let me see, one other book that I highly recommend, and if you're writing, especially for writers, you need to read this book because it will give you the insight that you need into the submissive mind and the submissive mindset and subspace and so on. And it's Extreme Space by F.R.R. Mallory. And they actually just came out with a second edition, which is amazing. It's a fantastic book. And I really highly recommend that book. And that book has actually saved my butt a couple of times because of the information in it. And I tell people that, and I mean it in all honesty, and that there's some examples that she gives about when a submissive goes feral, and I'll explain that in a second. But she gives the information on how to get them to refocus so that you can keep them calm, or if they've gotten loose, you can control them without getting hurt. And actually one of those pieces, you know, some of her information actually saved my butt once or twice because of the situation having come up, and I would have never expected it if I hadn't have read about it.
Well, that's fantastic. I will definitely check out all of those books.
So that's definitely one that I love. And I read it all the time.
I'll put that on our resource list as well.
Yeah. And one of the things that I tell people is to have yourself a sensuality library. I'm very big on having sensuality books and a kink library. Start your own little collection. Have a bookshelf. You know, one shelf on your bookcase that's nothing but books on sexuality to allow you to become a better lover and to allow you to explore things differently, which is so important. And so much fun, because you'll sit there and you'll look at it and you'll read about it and you go, honey, come here, let's try this. Charlie said. And then he can go, damn it, Charlie.
Well, I think that's definitely one thing that kinky people, it's almost like sex is a hobby. In a lot of my vanilla friends' lives, sex is, something to be avoided or endured, and it's certainly not a subject of conversation, and it's certainly not something that they practice to get better at. So I think they're missing out.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm going to use that in an article, actually. Call it "Sex is a Hobby," because
there you go.
It should be. It's one of those things, and that's an actual great metaphor, because it's something that you should be learning about and exploring and interacting and tweaking and then trying and putting a new flavor into it and doing it over and over and over.
Well, it's also something that you should enjoy doing, look forward to doing, and invest in, which is what people do with their hobbies. My husband just came into the bedroom to get ready for bed, and he probably likes the sound of all of this. He's thumbs up.
He'll be going, can we listen to that recording again? And by the way, I want to try that hood.
Yeah, I made a note. I wrote that down. I'll put some asterisks there.
Yeah. And it is one of those pieces. You're right. It's something that you should invest in. It's something that you should, continue to explore and educate yourself. I do actually 365 days of love and sex tips. And
I know. Those are awesome. I love them.
Oh, awesome. And it's one of those things where every day I send you a little email on things to try, on things to explore with yourself, with your partner, and continue to do that for 365 days out of your year. And if you do them, if you follow those instructions, even if you follow one a week, you will become so confident in yourself, in your sexuality, in your interactions, that your entire love life will change. And not only your love life, but your interactions in all of your life will change. So it becomes an actual transformation of yourself as we go through it. And that's one of the, I was going to bring up the picture. I know I have it in here. Here it is. And so it allows you to learn, and it allows you to have different tips. And actually, I'm coming out with a dominant version of it and being able to, and it's called Dami Says. And so it's all about how to get into the mindset of having fun and being playful in your sexuality and kink. And that was going to come out at the end of the month. So be on the lookout for it.
I will be on the lookout for that. That sounds great.
Yeah. But I have to say, and I'm going to come back here to our picture. I love this picture. Isn't that a fun picture? That was the one you were talking about.
Yes, that one and the one of the man with
and the one with the guy.
Amazing.
And one thing that I love about this picture, because one of the girls goes, I'm not sure that would be a good one. And I'm going, every time I look at her, I think of getting ready for the conference. That's my viewpoint on this. She's putting on her shoes. She's got her corset right next to that. She's getting ready. She's getting ready to come and attend and have fun and have a blast. And that's what we're going to be doing at the conference. We're going to have fun. We're going to have interactions. It's not just for writers. It's for anyone interested in learning about dominance and submission. Readers will learn just as much as authors will. There's two different tracks. We have one for everyone and one for writers. And the ones that are all the workshops that the writers are doing for writers actually is about kink. And so even if you go to the writers workshop, they're still going to be just as wonderful. And I'm actually thinking of this making it where it doesn't differentiate between the two, because you're getting so much information in all of that. And just like the workshop that you're doing, it's not just for writers, it's for everyone, because you're talking about fantasies and bringing it into reality and making your whole, even if you're reading a book and bringing the stuff that you learned or the examples that they gave in the book and you're bringing it into your life, you're enjoying it. And you're
I'm
definitely, it to make it
definitely pitching that one for readers.
Oh,
because that's for the readers who read the book see something that, you know, really turns them on, that they think, I might like to try that, and then how to do it and communicate what you're looking for from the scene to your partner so that you're not disappointed.
Right, right. And it is that piece of trial and error. If it didn't work out right the first time, but you really like it, try it again. Tweak it,
yes.
Make it work for you, try it again. And keep trying it again, because every time you're going to do it in a different way, and you're also going to get a different emotional connection.
Because
that's the beauty of it.
You bring a different mindset to it every time, so.
Yes, you do. And for women, and this is something that's not normally spoken of, but for women, it will feel differently if you're on the submissive end. Things will feel differently right around your cycle. So your menstrual cycle will have you acting differently and feeling it differently, because it'll get more intense, because your body becomes more sensitive during your cycle, right before it and right after it. Your cycle allows your body to become more sensitive. So what you might have been able to experience before, you won't be, or let me rephrase that. What you might have been able to accept before, as far as, you know, being flogged or having a spanking or having nipple clamps put on, you might find that right during your cycle, it's not going to be as comfortable and you're not going to enjoy it. So, and the reason I bring this up is if you're trying something right around your cycle for the first time and you don't like it, or it becomes painful or whatever, try it again after, like a week after, because you might see that the connection and the physical connection will be different.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. So it's all in how our bodies work. So I have to say, we're going to start wrapping up, because we've been talking for about an hour and a half now. And we didn't, and it's been so wonderful. I've had such a blast. And
yes, me too. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, same here. We didn't get to go for the question, but I think we covered so many aspects of sexuality and kink that it's perfect. And I'll just do a different, the next show we'll cover some of the questions from Steve that he had about working with protocols and rituals with his partner. And I want to say thank you so much for being on the show with me and talking and sharing about your life and your book. And
it was my pleasure.
I'm going to close your eyes and go fast all the way to the beginning. And
there
so,
we go.
There you go. And so if you want to get in touch with Miranda Baker, please go to her website, mirandabaker.com. Also get her books. If you go and get, what was it, The Student?
Top Student.
That's Top Student.
It's
and
coming
it's free,
out
isn't it?
At the end of February. It can be pre-ordered on Amazon and the Sam Hain Publishing website, so that it can just arrive on your Kindle or whatever, you know, it'll be free on all platforms.
I love when it happens like that.
I know. It's like a present. It's even better when it's free.
Like yes, and it just comes right to your door and knocks on your little telephone door, you know.
Top Student, all for you.
Yes, Top Student. And the other one we were talking about was the Power Trip.
Power Trip, yes indeed.
I actually downloaded it, I think last month when we were talking, and I haven't had a chance to read it, but now that I know that it's about electric play and then throw in that whip with electricity, ooh, I'm all for that.
It is super sexy.
Super sexy, so definitely. And thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you'll come back, in the months ahead as we continue going.
I would love to. I would love to talk to you again. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It was great fun.
Okay, and have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dr. Charley.
Bye.
Bye-bye.